We are going to close it out in style with one more leader, champion, visionary, all of it, from down south. And he will be joined by Kristin on stage. Senator Bill Hagerty from the great state of Tennessee has called for a federal regulatory structure for stablecoins over and over again. He is quoted as saying, this SEC, you look at the regulatory onslaught that they've had to deal with, the fact that they're using the lack of a legal framework to just come in and regulate this industry by litigation, a theme you have heard more than once over these past 2 days. He wants to create a great opportunity for crypto to expand in the United States and at the cutting edge of innovation, his words. And he has said, we've reached a point where the lack of action is holding back progress, emphatically, and the last thing we need to do is push it offshore. Here to talk about this and much more, again, from the great state of Tennessee, Senator Bill Hagerty and our CEO, Kristin Smith.
Is this working okay? Good afternoon. We are super excited to have perhaps my favorite guest of the evening, or the whole day, actually. We have Senator Bill Hagerty, who really plays an incredibly unique role, I think, in the Senate, and has not only been a really good ally to our industry, but to a lot of the folks that are about to come into power in Washington. So excited to have him here today. I want to start, because you served in the previous administration under President Trump, and obviously he's coming in now, and I know that you were playing a very big role for him as he was campaigning. Can you just talk a little bit about how you got to meet him and how he was to work with the first go-around?
I met President Trump some time ago, but I started working with him when I was the Tennessee finance chair of the 2016 campaign. And I stayed involved, helped through the transition, and then went to serve as the U.S. ambassador to Japan. He nominated me for that position. I was one of the first 4 ambassadors to go to my post at a time that was really exceptionally challenging. If you think about it, Kim Jong-un had ramped up the rhetoric and the actions considerably. Shortly after I got to Japan, they launched intercontinental ballistics, they meaning the North Koreans, intercontinental ballistic missiles over Japan. They detonated a thermonuclear weapon. Things were pretty tense out there at that time. And that also gave me the opportunity for my first real exposure and thought about cryptocurrency in the industry as it exists. And I'll tell you, my first encounter wasn't that great, or my first impression, I should say, because I was working my heart out trying to prevent ship-to-ship transfers of coal from North Korean ships to Chinese ships that might have prevented them from getting $3 million, $5 million. We're trying to prevent guest workers from going to other countries that might have, blocked $7, $8, $10 million of hard currency coming to North Korea. And there on the top of my desk when I came in one morning was a headline in the Japanese papers that a wallet shop called CoinCheck had been hacked the night before. Forget this, $500 million US. I called to my team, I said, are you tracking this? They said, sir, we can't get, I'll use the wrong term, we can't get the malware from the government of Japan. They're quite embarrassed about this. I had the malware within an hour. I had it back here to the States. They very quickly said it's a state actor behind it. My mind quickly goes to North Korea and what we're doing, and all I could think about was illicit finance. And I had to go to Prime Minister Abe on this because I found out that there were 39 wallet shops in operation in Tokyo at the time. 19 of them were in an applied for status, CoinCheck being one of them. 20 had actually cleared the hurdle. So we got the 19 shut down, and I'm thinking more like a cop at this point. But as I begin to dig in, I realized that this currency is part of a technology that's absolutely amazing. And as I thought about it a little bit more, we've been dealing with illicit finance since the beginning of time. You've got cash, you've got many means of conducting illicit activities. It's just on us to figure out how to address it. And so I moved over time to somebody that really appreciated the impact, the possibilities, and frankly, as a business person my whole life, I started out my career at a place called the Boston Consulting Group. We always look for innovation, ways to sort of shake things up and change an industry. I thought, this is one of the most innovative technologies I've ever seen. And so move forward, and from the Trump administration to to Trump as a candidate, I worked very closely with him on the potential of this technology. I met with him with a group of blockchain miners and explained to him how we're in Tennessee using blockchain miners to help us cost justify the build out of TVA's electric grid. They've got a perfect profile when you think about their demand, because they can curtail at a moment's notice and ramp up at times when we don't need the capacity. So you've got to build an electric grid to peak capacity. You've got to overinvest in it because you don't know when a storm's going to come or cold weather. But you don't always need that capacity. And being able to justify the uses of that capacity with, in this case, a blockchain miner helps us get to where we want to go with, again, back to my home state, for example, with AI. Look at what Elon Musk just put into Memphis. It's going to be the largest AI, largest data center that we have here in America. It's going to consume a lot of electricity. But there's a positive relationship there, and I think the blockchain miners have gotten hammered pretty hard by the environmentalists, but really, they're helping us build for the future. President Trump appreciates that, and I think he's fully embraced it. In fact, we had Blockchain Nashville, and I invited President Trump to come. We had a great turnout. For a number of the companies here were there, and a great opportunity for leaders in this industry to spend time with him. I think we're going to have more of those opportunities to come.
Well, we appreciate the time you spent to help educate him. He's certainly come a long way, and I always like to say people never go from being pro-crypto to anti-crypto. It's only the other way around the more they get to know it. So this is a perfect example. We all in this room, we care a lot about Bitcoin and crypto policy, but I know that President Trump is going to have a much broader economic agenda, and you sit on the Senate Banking Committee, so we'll be very involved. But can you talk about some of the competing priorities that we should be aware of in terms of what President Trump wants to do, and both what will be taking time from the agencies, but also with Congress?
Well, in terms of the priorities, and some of them will compete, but some are going to be quite complementary as I think about it. There's a major thrust for deregulation. And one of the House committees did an estimate of the cost of the Biden regulatory agenda over the past 4 years. They've nailed it at over $1 trillion in terms of excess compliance cost and burden on the economy. There's a real opportunity there, and I think Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have taken a lot of press time on this. But the American public has been so inspired. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me saying, "I want to come work on the Doge team," and people see opportunities. We've got, I wouldn't call them whistleblowers, but people that work in the federal government that realize that there's a tremendous amount of waste. They want to do something about it. So there's clear opportunity there that is going to go into the cost savings column, the efficiency column. I'll just share one personal anecdote. I was named the Commerce Secretary in my home state of Tennessee. And this was at a time when our state was in the bottom half of every economic metric, meaning we had higher unemployment than the rest of the country. We had lower wage and GDP growth than the rest of the country. This was in January of 2011. We also had a $1.6 billion budget shortfall, which on a $31 billion budget, that's a material number. So the governor told us all to take a hard look at our agencies and figure out where to cut. I eliminated over 40% of the positions in my department, over 40% of the positions. That saved millions on a recurring basis. I spent a little bit of it back. The salaries that remained, I raised between $14,000 and $15,000 a head, which may not sound like a lot here in Washington, but in state government, that was a material number. It allowed me to recruit a different type of person. Smaller team, more effective team. Guess what? We crushed it. Tennessee went from the bottom of the pack to the very top. 4 years later, after I finished my term, Tennessee had become the #1 state in the nation for creating jobs through foreign direct investment, and the only state in America to ever be named the State of the Year for Economic Development twice in a row. It can be done. We can do it here. So I see huge opportunity in terms of cutting back, taking a new and innovative approach to how we do business. And if I think about the trip I took recently down to watch a SpaceX launch, Elon explained to me that it took him 5 years from the time they bought the dirt to where we were just a few days ago catching. Well, it didn't happen on that particular event, but the fact that he's built technology that can launch and catch the same rocket on the way back down is amazing. So I see great potential there. On the incentive side, I'll say it that way, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act did a tremendous amount for the economy here in America. We'll be focused on extending that in the new year and doing that in a way that will incentivize more capital investment here in America, that will not incentivize corporate inversions, which when we had a corporate tax rate of 35%, we were seeing corporations moving offshore all the time. Move it down to 21%, the inversion is essentially halted. President Trump has talked about taking maybe that rate further, maybe from 21 down to 15%. All of that will stimulate more investment in our economy. More investment begets more jobs begets more economic growth. This is not rocket science. That's what I expect to happen.
So one of the unique things that we're going to experience with the single-party government, which, there's pros to that, there's cons to that, is the reconciliation process in the Senate. Can you talk a little bit about what that might mean, kind of from a broader tax policy, or are there other opportunities
Sure, Kristin.
to?
The reconciliation process is something that was new to me. I've never even run for dog catcher before I ran for the U.S. Senate. I've been there for 4 years, and as I arrived 4 years ago, the reconciliation process was unleashed. And the Biden administration used that to pump trillions of dollars into the economy, stimulating the economy at a time where it was already overheating. At the same time, they took a regulatory posture that drove energy prices through the roof. The combined effect of that was inflation that we are still trying to get under control. What you'll see is a major effort to come in and take a hard look at what has already happened. It has to be, to qualify for the reconciliation process, it has to be in some way tied to the budget. Not policy per se, but it's got to be a budgetary implication. But they opened the aperture so wide in the last reconciliation process that they went through that I expect to see a lot more business-friendly, investment-friendly policies embedded there to the extent there are funds that can be clawed back. For example, $80 billion for IRS agents to come and snoop a little bit deeper. I think, things like that I think are on the chopping block. And again, incentives for greater investment is what I would expect to see.
I want to turn the conversation to the Senate Banking Committee, and I think you're one of the most thoughtful members of that committee. We had some of your colleagues, Senator Lummis and Senator Tim Scott, here today, and we're certainly
great colleagues.
Yes, we're very excited to see Senator Scott take the helm and have some opportunities there. But you've had a lot to say about stable coins. Is that something that the Senate Banking Committee might be able to tackle next year?
I think it certainly is. As I think about my ability to explain this, and again, you know where I started. I told you, many of my colleagues are still sort of stuck back there thinking, oh gosh, this is illicit finance, and they listen to Elizabeth Warren, they think there's only crime associated with this. So as I start to think through the process and I talk with my colleagues, the stable coin is something they can get their heads around pretty quickly. A US dollar denominated decentralized stable coin would do a lot of good. One, it would help support the dollar as the reserve currency of the world. You think about the transactions, people want to transact in dollars. And if we made that more accessible here, I think we'd see a lot more volume. We'd also see more volume, more demand, I should say, for Treasury bills. And that would help as well on a short-term basis as we think about bringing our debt back under control and the cost of money here at our auctions. So it has I think, a very positive potential impact. And as I explain it to my colleagues, it gets a very positive response.
One of the roles of the Senate Banking Committee is to look at Trump's nominees. So we have Scott Bessent headed to Treasury and Paul Atkins for the SEC. How quickly can the committee move on those names? I think, we're all excited to see, some permanent leadership, though I think we're going to have some great acting leadership in the interim. But realistically, how long is that going to take to get through the committee and then through the floor?
I am certain that we will prioritize the Treasury Secretary right along with Secretary of Defense and State as quickly as possible. So we're talking days after the 20th of January. We will be teeing these nominees up in committee beforehand, and we're going to get back here on the 3rd of January to swear in my new colleagues, and we'll be at work on the following Monday. So I think the committee activity will be rapid. We're working hard. The nominees are coming around and meeting senators right now. They're getting ahead of that process. So I'm optimistic that the cabinet will be selected quickly. And if I think about how important the SEC is, we need to get Paul into position as quickly as we possibly can following these cabinet posts. So I think you're going to see us acting quickly. It should be great news for the crypto industry that Paul is coming into office. One, I can tell you this because we were roommates in school. He's a brilliant guy, a solid player. I do not know. He's been able to work on 3 hours of sleep ever since I've known him. He's just a workhorse. But Paul totally gets it. He understands how important it is to have capital markets that are competitive. It's a huge competitive advantage for our nation, and he's going to be very friendly to the industry here.
Yeah, no, I think we're excited. We've been boxed into a corner for the past 3.5 years, and it's been pretty brutal. So I think it'll be nice to have a little breathing room and see what we can do.
And he's got a great working relationship with the other two Republican commissioners. They were both his general counsels at one point. So I think you'll see somebody, a team that's really ready to move out quickly and effectively. If you think about how far out of their lane the SEC has gotten with climate regulations and DEI regs and quotas on boards and all this sort of stuff. The board quota thing, got batted down last week in court. They need to get back to their business, and Paul and the team over there will know exactly how to do that.
What was he like as a roommate?
He's a great guy. Just as I said, a workhorse even back in school. It was always amazing how much work he could do and how late he could stay up and do it. But he's going to be great.
Deep banking is something that I think everyone in this room has been dealing with for a long time, and just only in recent weeks has it really come to light as being a problem. We at the Blockchain Association have done FOIA requests. We've investigated if there are lawsuits we can bring, and it's just been a really difficult issue because there's no paper on policy we can point to that we can see or process. It's really opaque. Is there anything the Senate Banking Committee can do, either from an investigative point of view or legislatively, to help the crypto industry get banked?
From an investigative point of view, the main thing that needs to happen is that the gavel needs to come out of Sherrod Brown's hand and into Tim Scott's hand, and that will happen on the 6th of January. We'll be back in business. There has been zero oversight by the Senate Banking Committee on any of these agencies. And if you think about these bank regulators, they have far more power than was ever intended. And they can go and suggest that there's a suspicious activity and ask for a report to be listed, which immediately kicks a company out of, they can even say, a company is high risk. That's the designation that they can point to. And if a company is high risk, that means increased compliance requirements, which means the account suddenly becomes totally unprofitable for the banking entity, so they're gone. And I think a number of us heard Mark Andreessen say that I haven't been able to verify it, but 30 crypto companies that have been debanked. Whatever the number is, anything greater than zero is wholly unacceptable. That's not the intent of our regulatory system, to have some faceless bureaucrat go on, an unaccessible guidance that you can't FOIA and go out and decide we don't like this industry or that industry. I was just meeting with a friend of mine today. He runs the largest private prison company in America. Called me when I was ambassador to Japan, and he said, you know what? My lending syndicate just fell apart because the banks have decided that, and I think it's because of Elizabeth Warren saying that she didn't like private prisons, that it's not cool to bank our industry. Now get this. You can't get banked here. You think about how capital intensive a prison, the prison industry is. I said, how soon can you get on a flight to Tokyo? He said, I can be there Monday. Came out, introduced him to a few banks. He got it all done in Tokyo, but that is ridiculous. That a U.S. company, a publicly traded U.S. company, has to fly overseas to fill a gap because some faceless, nameless supervisor, decided they're going to put a little pressure on, a bank syndicate and make it impossible for them to fund it here.
Yeah, no, it's been a huge pain point. So we're hoping that that's something that can get fixed fairly quickly. Any advice that you have for us for dealing with the new ranking member of the committee? Elizabeth Warren?
No.
I know, we don't even hide it. I'm like, we don't like her. Say it on TV.
I don't have any advice.
She doesn't like us. It's mutual. Is there going to be a digital assets subcommittee? It sounds like Senator Lummis might chair that.
Yeah, it sounds like there will be.
Is that something you might serve on as well?
It certainly is. And I applaud incoming Chairman Scott for looking at the possibility of doing this. So I think that there's a possibility there. I've spoken with President Trump about having, basically an industry advisory board as well. And when David Sachs comes in, that'll be the focus, or the locus, I should say, of where that activity will take place. But David knows the industry as well, and I think we're going to have some very bright people involved on the outside, as well as people on the inside.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about David Sachs. I think it's interesting because as these announcements have been made, I feel like I've had a pretty good sense of what's coming. I did not see that one coming. That just came out of thin air. But I've had the pleasure to meet him finally, and I know you were very big. He had the big fundraiser for Trump in Silicon Valley. I think you attended that. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with him and any insights as to what direction he may take with that role?
David is a quintessential tech entrepreneur from Silicon Valley. He was one of the PayPal guys in the beginning, but he's since gone out and made some tremendous investments in other early technology plays, and I think he's done extremely well. He certainly knows everybody in the community out there in Silicon Valley, and has been a great window for the president, for me, and for others to meet and connect with some of the leading edge entrepreneurs in that area. As I mentioned, I helped him with the big fundraiser he did for President Trump, and I remember as we were rolling into his neighborhood there in San Francisco, one of the police officers that was walking next to my car, he said, "Sir, I know I'm not supposed to be partisan, but I'm so glad to see you here." And I just think we've got a real opportunity to bring a group of people that perhaps weren't connected politically in to help our nation's economy expand, grow, and stay at the cutting edge of innovation. That part is exciting, and that's part of David's charge.
One final question, and then we'll wrap up and let everybody get ready for our party tonight. Any sort of final thoughts or advice that you have for the industry here? I know I've been really proud as to how far along the industry's come over the past few years, and I think we're in a great position right now, but would love any thoughts or advice on how we should be thinking about the new administration and the new Congress.
Kristin, first I want to compliment you and the Blockchain Association for navigating the past 4 years. This has been very hard, very challenging. And I think it's the dedication that so many of you have in this room to a technology that has phenomenal potential. What I hope I can convey is a sense of optimism that we'll see more innovation happening here in America than any place else in the world. If I look at our capital markets, everything is moving with a sense of optimism right now. I think $56 billion came into our equity markets the week after the election. And I just continue to see announcements. You probably saw Masa-san talking about $100 billion that he's committed to in 4 years. Trump immediately asked him to double that, no surprise there. But it really is, I think, a time for a new day here. And people I talk with are very optimistic right now, and that's borne out in the data as well. Consumer confidence is up. Small NFIB numbers, those small business operators, great confidence numbers there. I think what we're going to see is that optimism translate into real investment. And again, investment begets success in our economy. So we'll see it grow. I hope that means that the combination of economic growth, the combination of what will happen with DOGE, and a lot of other positive things will mean that the deficit shrinks. We'll be moving back in a positive direction from a fiscal standpoint, and this country's going to be rolling again.
Well, with that, thank you. We appreciate you coming over here today, and thank you everyone for attending. I think Dave may have a final announcement with details for tonight, but join me in thanking Senator Hagerty for taking some time today.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.